Welcome back, everybody, to round number 11, I believe it is, of our Blitz event. And we've seen a lot of Magnus Carlsen and Hikaru Nakamura, so why not use this round to catch up with two guys that we have not seen that much of yet. Vishy Anand, former world champion with the black pieces, is facing his former helper, I'm not sure if that's fair, Anish Giri. Anish, when he was still very young, like 16 years old, he was invited to a Vishy Anand training camp for a world championship match. And looks like he learned his lesson pretty well and has become one of the premier players in the world. Anish Giri not having a great tournament so far. Anna, you think he can make a comeback?
I hope so, but he told us that the main problem is that his wife, Sopika Guramishvili, is not here. So it explains why he's playing so bad.
Yeah, yesterday there were rumors going around that he did fire his second after a mediocre performance. He's accompanied by the very strong Indian player Vidit, but I believe they are still on good terms and there was no real firing. But Anish here with white has some ground to make up against the ever-solid Vishy Anand. Plays a very classical opening, and we see this line which is quickly gaining in popularity, this fake Catalan where white goes b3 followed by bishop b2, not determining the situation in the center yet. The main line after b3 is c5, bishop b2, knight c6, cd, knight d5 and d4. Curious if Anish wants to join that discussion or what he has done. Yeah, we do get that indeed. d4, c takes d4, bishop to d7. We've seen knight a3 earlier from Vladimir Kramnik. That's the trendy move, but Anish plays a very solid knight to c3. And Mori is slightly regretting choosing that game. Anish, what are you doing? You can't exchange off all the pieces for your TV game. But seriously, white is trying to get a tiny edge here because of his bishop on the long diagonal, putting a bit of pressure. Black, if he manages to neutralize a bishop, go rook c8 followed by bishop c6, he tends to equalize. But I am sure Mr. Giri, who's always very well prepared, has something up his sleeve.
Let's hope that, because we really want to focus on this game, unless they shake hands quickly and we will move on to another one.
Queen d3 played by Anish. I guess that is his new idea. I'm not quite sure what that accomplishes. After knight takes d4, he has to play bishop takes, bishop c6.
On
maybe
the board, and
he wants to go after the a7 pawn.
I think he might have played a6.
Yeah, Vishy. And can you play a6? Isn't b7 hanging?
Oh, then it's b6, something on the queen side.
Yeah, b6 would keep the pawns intact, but it would stop black from immediately neutralizing that pressure on the long diagonal, because after, let's say, rook c1, you can't go bishop c6 anymore. That's very typical for this line. It's a tiny, tiny advantage for white, but black still has to be precise in order to neutralize it. And Vishy has not touched any pawns, but played the move bishop to b5, trying to solve his problems immediately by using some tactics. Queen takes b5, queen takes d4, and even though he loses the b7 pawn, he's arguing that with opposite colored bishops and his active pieces, he should not be in all that much trouble.
Queen takes b5 and queen takes d4 on the board. Judging from Anish's facial expression, he was slightly surprised by this bishop b5 move.
Yeah, I guess he was following his computer preparation, and bishop b5 is a pawn sacrifice, so probably not the first choice of a computer that might prefer b6 or bishop c6, one of those moves. But Vishy is judging, or maybe he knows, I don't know, that this position should be tenable as well. Anish has to grab the pawn on b7, else he has nothing. Therefore, yeah, queen takes b7 is on the board. Anand plays bishop a3, interesting move, fighting for the c file. Rook a d1. It's always hard to say. Don't be fooled by the opposite color bishops. This doesn't mean an automatic draw, especially with queens and rooks still on the board.
The queens have come off of the board.
Especially with rooks still on the board.
Yeah, with the rooks, Anish can hope for getting that full point out of this pawn advantage.
Yeah, this position, it should be holdable for sure, but it is very much in Anish's style. We've seen him win something similar against MVL earlier in the tournament, where he just goes for an endgame that is totally risk-free with the smallest of advantages. In this case, it's an extra pawn, but with opposite color bishops, and then tries to make something out of it. Not a bad strategy for Blitz. You can't lose, and we've seen many people win almost equal endgames. Having said all that, it's gonna be very, very hard to make significant progress here. Vishy centralizes king, goes g6, king f8, king e7. And asks Anish, what are you planning to do, young Padawan?
I see here on the chat on Chess24 that there are many Indian fans, and also I see people rooting for Anish Giri, so this is really a game where both players have loads of fans. Of course, these are the 10 very best players of the world. They have huge support behind them. I think all of them can be liked for something, their playing style, their dressing style, the way they are. Some of them are very humble, some of them are very entertaining. I think we all like them, don't we?
I'm not sure if we all like them or if we like them all, but yeah, I do believe we have a very good generation of top players. A lot of nice guys out there. And Anand says, no more Mr. Nice Guy, I'm not going to give you all that space for free, but goes for f5 before Anish can make any progress by either going f5 or maybe fixing his pawns with g5. There's a pawn exchange, g takes f, e takes f. And it looks like this structure change has, I don't know, I believe it has been in black's favor because it makes his task a little easier. White doesn't really have any pawn breaks, e4 is never realistic. h4, h5 could be a future plan, but you have to make sure this pawn wouldn't get fixed on h4 and become a target itself. Vishy also has the angle that if he exchanges all the rooks, the position just becomes a draw, and yeah, that's what he does. He goes for rook to c1.
So with bishop c4, Anish avoids at least the exchange of one rook, but rook d8, insisting on exchanging all the rooks.
Yeah, you can avoid the exchange of rooks, but then you have to live with this rook coming to d2. I believe this is just a professional equalizing job by Vishy Anand. I'm just curious if Anish can try to grab another pawn here, but probably the problem is that his bishop ends up being trapped after king f7, intending to go king g7. There's no way out for this bishop. White should still not lose this, he would have 3 pawns, but he can't win it either. Therefore, a bit of a decision here for Anish, and I guess he's just going to take on d8 and hope for the best, but the best seems to be half a point here. Giri wearing another sharp shirt, white and grey combination.
He's always very stylish. It's easy to be so stylish when your wife is the most stylish chess lady in the world. I learned a lot from Sopiko myself.
I'm not sure who taught Sopiko about that giant watch. Speaking of giant watches, Vishy is not sporting a very small watch himself, so maybe it is a trend that I'm unaware of. And Anish managed to avoid the exchange of rooks by going bishop to d3. It's probably a good choice, not allowing rook d2 and keeping the rooks on the board. But Vishy's right back at harassing him with rook c8, intending rook c1 once again. Therefore, doesn't look like there is all that much progress to be made. I'm sorry, he went bishop d5.
Bishop d5 and rook d3 on the board.
Yeah, that was just my imagination. They did not actually play these moves. Rook to d8.
The pawn is on b5. We missed the move when he pushed b5, so it's white to move here, h3. And b4, of course, fixing everything on the queen side, so those 2 pawns against 1 will never become passed pawns.
Yeah, the problem for Anish is he can't really unpin his bishop without exchanging rooks, and once rooks get exchanged, the position just becomes extremely dull. Therefore, he's gonna try a little bit, but I don't think he can pose Vishy any problems. And Vishy does another clever thing. He goes h6, intending g5, limiting the number of pawns even further, and with all the pawns disappearing, the draw becomes imminent. Rook to d1 by Giri, bishop to b2, I would guess. Bishop a3, also fine. Exploiting that white can't really bring the king around, which he would like to do because his bishop is dropping. There's just nothing to do but move the bishop and shake hands.
You think he will still try? Is there any other plan we have missed?
I don't see it.
Going back? No, rook to d2.
Yeah, he's hoping for bishop c1, rook c2, but Vishy's not going to allow that. He's going to go g5, continue to exchange some pawns. And yeah, there is just very, very little to do. Looks, yeah, since this is going to be a draw, if not, we'll alert you. We'll switch to Kramnik versus Nakamura, another exciting matchup in this round, which is another endgame, but a lot less clear-cut because Nakamura has the c-pawn, which seems to be about to fall. I'm not sure if he can take it.
It has fallen, it seems.
rook c4, knight e5, and this is one of those Kramnik endgames where has an extra pawn. It might be a draw objectively, but Kramnik has been lethal in converting all these situations into full points. He's played rook c7. See,
yeah, he has cut the black king, king f8 on the board.
f6 is very harmful here for black. If he had g6, f7, h5, it would be easier to defend. In general, the knight plays well in situation with pawns only on one flank, but with the pawn on f6, Kramnik will try very hard to make something up.
And we also see that Magnus Carlsen has a better position against Veselin Topalov. We'll see if it's enough for a full point.
Magnus tends to do well against Topalov, except the times he loses on time. Not sure that's true, but he did have a very good score, then lost this infamous game in Norway chess where he had a winning position, lost on time, lost another game in the Sinquefield Cup, but overall he has been dominating their matchup. How is this position? He's a pawn up. Veselin is trying to generate some activity. Bunch of more moves have been made. Carlsen is working on manufacturing a breakthrough with a5 takes b6, b7, b8.
Queen d3 has just been played, I believe.
Queen d3, after rook b4, he would very much like to go for a little counter checkmate. Therefore, not so easy to get that in. Rook to c1. Yeah, it looks like Veselin's problems remain. He has to play super actively. Looks like he's played rook a2, but that's allowing a5. Oh no, it's allowing a knight fork.
Seems like Magnus Carlsen has
Nice
played
geometry.
knight b4, and Veselin Topalov has resigned. So he just missed this fork, and that after queen d2, the knight is protecting the rook on c1 after capturing the a2 rook. So once again, Magnus Carlsen increases his lead, we believe, unless Levon Aronyan or Wesley So manages to win, because the game between Anish Giri and Vishy Anand has ended in a draw.
No surprises there. Let's check in with Wesley So for a second. Is he getting mated by Fabiano? Very tense position.
It seems that he is worse against Fabiano.
But he's managed to avoid immediate checkmate, and he has this a pawn, which is gonna cost white a rook. So Wesley being his tenacious self, trying to figure out what's going on here. The players have made like 18 more moves. We're gonna get an update on the position in a second. Seems like Fabiano's probably a bishop down, but grabbed a couple pawns for it, and might have to settle for a perpetual here. Yeah, this is
seems like
the situation.
He's going for a perpetual, but can he? Or can the black king hide? King h6?
King went to h6. There's no more checks for the moment, so Fabiano has to find a way to create enough play here, else he might still lose if black only gets one time out to pick up a pawn. He's gonna be in trouble. He's trying to create enough problems with the queen, put it on the long diagonal where it covers him. Against queen e4 checks and targets both these pawns. It's the ideal square. I believe in practice white should hold this. It seems to be very, very hard to make progress here. But Wesley's certainly going to try. He has an extra bishop after all.
Queen a8 has just been played. Some technical difficulties because there are more checks to come if the king goes somewhere else, threatening queen g8 check. So queen f7 was played, but now queen e4, queen back to a8, king f7, some more checks, and the draw agreed between Fabiano Caruana and Wesley So, which leaves us with Kramnik Nakamura as the only ongoing game.
Kramnik's trying to win another rook endgame, a pawn up, but I believe he's not going to succeed in this one. Hikaru has arranged his pieces very well. The king on g7 protects everything, and this pawn structure means white can only make progress by exchanging another pawn, going f3, and the resulting 2 versus 1 should be reasonably simple draw. Then again, you never know with this guy Kramnik. He tends to find ways to pose some problems, even in the simplest looking endgames. This one, yeah, even he can't do anything, and he agrees to a draw.
Let's see the results of this round and how the standings have changed.
Magnus Carlsen won his game, so he's extended his lead 2 points ahead of Levon Aronyan and Wesley So, who drew their games now. Vishy Anand also still on a plus score. Everybody else is in minus.
That's interesting, and we shall also see the pairings for the next round, which will begin in 10 minutes, I believe. It's going to be the former world champion against world champion. So once again, an Anand Carlsen, if we haven't seen enough yet of the two playing against each other. We also have Topalov facing Vachier, Aronyan against Kramnik, Nakamura against Fabiano Caruana, and Wesley So facing Anish Giri.
Yeah, we're gonna go with Anand Kramnik. No big choice there.
Anand Carlsen, you mean?
Anand Carlsen, I'm sorry. Sometimes I think Kramnik is still world champion, but this Norwegian guy has been around for a while.
So well.
Yeah, he's still very strong. Still number 2 in classical chess in the current list. I believe I should check such things. But anyway, no Kramnik next round. We're going with Anand versus Carlsen. Stay tuned. We're gonna see you in a couple minutes for the World Championship rematch.